this episode of In the House, I sit down with Ben Baker and Todd Roberts of U.S. Lumber Brokers. Ben gives us a brief history of the company and how they seek to serve their clients and community. We have an in-depth discussion about thermally modified and acedylated hardwoods. What are they, and how can they be utilized on your next project? If quality is of the highest importance, then their Primeline material is for you. We talk about the benefits of using their Primeline products, as well as what we can expect to see in the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, give the show a 5-star rating. Thanks for listening.
Todd, Ben, how's it going?
Great, how are you?
I'm great, and thanks, by the way, honestly, for bringing this. I got a new Yeti U.S. Lumber Brokers tumbler, right?
Yeah.
This is phenomenal. I want a sticker. Dude, this is awesome. I really appreciate you bringing that.
Proof I didn't drink out of it already.
Yeah, hopefully. And the bourbon as well. My gosh, what do we got? This is a Henry McKenna single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon.
Yeah.
Quite
phenomenal.
tasty. Thank you, Todd.
Cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
This is awesome.
Cheers.
Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I've been looking forward to this drink all week. So appreciate you bringing that. But let's kind of dive right in. I want to open it up to you guys. Tell me about yourselves. Kind of give me your history and how did you find yourself in the lumber sales, U.S. lumber?
Great story. It's one of those stories where, I came to Austin thinking I was going to be a screenwriter. I just come out of high school around 1994, and everything was about Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and we were able to write a movie without not having a lot of talent. It seemed to be that way, but my eyes were quickly opened once I got to Austin and realized it's a lot more difficult than it was.
Really?
And I had to provide for myself. So I had a series of bounce around jobs, car washing, selling gym memberships, delivering Chinese food. And I got offered a job. I was working at a gym in West Austin, and the owner of a local lumber company, I sold him a gym membership. And he goes, "You're quite good at sales. And you think you'd be interested in working in a lumber yard?" And I looked at him really seriously. I said, "I'll have to pass."
Yeah.
And just went on about my way. And, about 2 or 3 years later, that gym closed, went under new ownership, and I found myself kind of bouncing around, and I gave him a call. I said, "Hey, let me take a crack at it." And, I told him right off the bat, "Look, I don't know anything about lumber, but, let me start in the yard." And that's where I started, a little shop off East Austin, Texas Redwood.
Okay.
And, there in the yard for about a year and a half, learning what it was like to pull lumber, what 2x4s were, was plywood, OSB, all these terms, and learning about the Texas heat outside on a constant basis.
Yeah.
And then after about 2 years, I got in the truck, was doing deliveries, and, learning to drive stick on one of these big international lumber trucks and those hills in Westlake, especially right there by the dam, Redbud, that you go down low.
Yeah.
And man, you got to crawl up that thing with about 20,000 pounds of wood.
Oh, yeah.
And you have every soccer mom in Westlake just on your rear end.
Honking at you, flipping you off.
Man, if I slip this one gear, it's over for you. And
I just finished a house over off Red Bud. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I did that and, didn't wreck in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
Then, I'd go back and forth between the yard and inside. And about the second year, I was bringing in one of the pool tickets, and one of the AP girls goes, "Everybody respects you." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "We know you're out there working really hard to do what you're doing." And at that point, I realized I'd earned the respect of the guys in the office as well as the guys in the outside. And what I had done to get the respect of the guys outside, we had the Gonzales Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So
tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was a very good deal. So I was one of the only white guys out there, and in that environment of working really, really hard, and just kind of everybody just wanted to be the best at what they were doing. They challenged me physically, so we came up with a series of Olympic events in the lumber yard to see who was actually more competitive.
That's awesome.
The first item was the concrete. I think it was a 22 bag of concrete, military pressed above your head the most number of times. The second thing was hanging on the second story lumber rack and doing as many pull-ups as you can.
Wow.
And the third one was diamond push-ups. And I destroyed the guys at it. and then after that, you know, they really took notice that I was there to work with them, and no problem.
That's phenomenal. And that's, you know what, that's inspired me. I think I want to implement something like that on the job.
Yeah,
Have a little Olympics.
It was fun. It was known as the Gonzales. And then after that, I was getting invited to the cantinas with them every Friday.
Yeah.
That's when you really know it's on, you know, going to those little dances. They're not there anymore, but East Austin used to be full of these wonderful little cantinas where, you know, maybe 50, 100 people, and it was great loud music all night and just people having a good time.
Well, the way I understand it, the first rule of negotiating is you never accept the first offer. So what made you call the guy back several years after the fact? I mean, what was it that made you call him back again and get into that?
That's a great question and an easy answer. Having zero experience in any work business, and like I said, I had upgraded from washing cars to delivering Chinese food to actually working inside a building.
Okay.
So I figured, and I was the only compliment that I had gotten was, you know, one, a good commission check and a steady check doing sales at the gym memberships. So I saw that how paying attention to what somebody wants, listening to what they're talking about, and being able to deliver a product, I could be good in sales. And that was the only sales job that was offered to me. So, you know, being the person listening, I called him up and he said, absolutely. And I've enjoyed it. I really do enjoy the idea of sales where there's a problem most of the time. Either it could be budget, it can be timeline, it can be lack of knowledge. And people reach out to you, and a good salesperson knows their clients, you know, from top to bottom, and can protect them from themselves or, you know, bad advertising or snake oil, like we like to call it, where people just love to tell you this product is a miracle product. It does everything and even installs itself. Yeah. And it's exactly the opposite.
Right, right. Well, what makes a good sale? Kind of walk me through the process.
Well, I do a lot of inbound calling, and I'll do some architectural visitations. But what really works is something that, like, Todd has a big hand in. He's been in this market a long time, so he understands the actual construction process. He'll look at the plans first and then make recommendations. That would be my first thing. Like, if you have plans to look at, or you know the type of builder, you know, you're not gonna, you don't approach them with something that's cheap. We don't sell lumber. We don't sell anything. The only thing we sell or promote is low risk. A low risk callback, the low risk of an unhappy customer, the low risk that you made an investment and it doesn't pay off.
Gotcha.
And once you think of it like that, it really, there's no product. I'm actually looking out for you, and I want you to be happy.
Yeah. Well, Todd, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Austin, which is getting rare these days, and kind of cut my teeth in the market with working in a lumber yard, running molders, and then moved into more fabrication. So I worked at a small mill in Creedmoor through late middle school into high school and actually into college a bit, and was first running molders and then started building custom doors there.
Okay.
They decided they wanted to shut down and move to Hawaii, so I started looking and ended up at what became Hune in East Austin.
Okay.
And was there for 12 years, and it was real heavy fabrication, architectural millwork, everything from blueprinting veneers to sawmills, kilns. We had a metal shop, so I got exposed to a ton of complex projects, everything from real rustic, homestead style construction, all the way to law office style, burls and veneers. So it really taught me a ton. I met a huge amount of folks here in town that were, in the construction industry, and it was very valuable prep for coming and working with Ben here at US Lumber.
It's actually, we met, I was a vendor of Todd's.
Really?
Yeah, I was a small guy. I mean, he's doing business with companies that are doing $50, $100 million. I'm running in there with like, hey, I got like 50 or 20 boards. Can you run for me? But he paid me the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people would come in there and like pound their fist, like, I need this, because they're big. They spend a bunch of money. And I told Todd, or I mentioned to Todd, he said it one time in conversation, Ben would either show up with tacos or money if he needed a favor, and then sometimes it'd be both. And I was like, that's exactly right. You know,
That's how you get put at the top of the list.
Absolutely, absolutely. For his guys, you know, it's always because his guys I'd ask him to stay late, you know, and those guys were more than willing to. But I never work hard enough during the day to even stay an extra hour. It was a lot, and he always helped me out.
That's a good trick, and I've actually used that before. You know, trying not necessarily to gain favorability, but you know, to basically to kind of put a name to a face. You know, there's a lot of times where you might have communication with people back and forth for years, but you've never actually met them. And I remember one time there was a truss manufacturer we were using, and we had some pretty massive delays, you know, getting the trusses. And to your point, I mean, rather than showing up and banging your fist and saying, "Where's my material?" You know, you get in there. This is who I am. I wanted to meet you. This is the project we're working on. Like, what can you do for me? And you know, did that buy me some time? Maybe it probably bought me a week or two. But hey, you know, I'll take it.
FaceTime is important for sure. I try to set aside Fridays and go and see current customers and just, you know, get out on site, see what's going on. You can sometimes get ahead of some problems or see that they're going to run short on material and try and get ahead of that. Just trying to be as helpful as you can, but also just make sure they see your face.
That's true. And that's just bottom line. That's just good service, period. I mean, but it sounds like, I mean, you have been steeped in this for a very long time, Todd.
It's all I've ever done. And from a work perspective has been in the wood industry. And I think my mom is pleasantly surprised that it worked out. All my other siblings, you know, went the college route, and once I was gonna have to loan some money to stay in school, I was like, you know, I think this carpentry thing could work. I'm just going to do that. And yeah, I'm really happy with the decision. There was a time when I was thinking I might have made a mistake, but
sure,
it's been great to be here in Austin in the construction industry for sure.
Man, especially now. Good grief, it's growing quite a bit. But let's kind of transition. I'd like to talk about a lot of the services that y'all provide. I had a note on here about Primeline. I hear that thrown around a lot. If one of you could, what is Primeline? Like, what does that mean? And kind of give me the rundown.
Well, we have a line of softwoods that are labeled Primeline. It's our own in-house brand, and it's essentially the highest possible grade of any of these species. So if you want the highest possible grade of Western red cedar, we're going to go get it. We're going to make sure that it's the best material you can get. And even beyond that, with cedar, we'll even do a color select for you. But we have that option in hemlock, we have it in fir, and we have it even in southern yellow pine, which a lot of people haven't seen a clear vertical grain southern yellow pine, but it is a beautiful product as well. Pine has kind of a bad reputation here in Texas with some people, but we sell a lot of that out of state because people see it and it's beautiful. And the West Coast is a little saturated with what they have available in that area, so they're a little more interested in the unique parts. But to answer your question, it's really, we are very active in the architect office. We're in there trying to get materials specified. Yeah. And when they mark the plans with Primeline, it ties it to us, and they know what they're getting, right? So if somebody's not going to come in and drop a CVG on a project that's supposed to be Primeline fir, right? They're not going to give them something that's not what the architect's looking for. So it's a way for us to tie that spec back to our company. It also protects the architect. And what we've seen many, many times, as you know, when a builder GC looks at a set of plans and it's an estimator who are always trying that rush to the bottom. They see cedar siding, immediately they think Home Depot products. What you get at the normal local company lumber yard, where if they stock it, it has knots, it's air dried, or green product, which will shrink up, a quarter inch after you install it. When the architect actually specs Primeline and U.S. Lumber Brokers as a manufacturer, then it gives the architect leverage when they do not consult the spec book, buy the wrong material, install it, and it looks terrible. It absolutely falls back on the builder and the general contractor for not following the architect spec.
And then also it ensures the integrity of the vision of the architect. So you didn't look at the plans, obviously, and that's why we're having this problem, because it's very clearly written out: prime line Western red cedar, U.S. lumber brokers. And if you bought it from another person and not our company, you're not going to get the same quality. The follow through sale, it's happened many a times, and thankfully the local architects here know about this product. It saves them a lot of trouble and grief.
Well, if you could, for maybe people who are listening who are probably used to buying lumber from Home Depot, kind of explain the quality differences in prime line versus just off the shelf stuff. I mean, we're talking color, right? But like, what are some of the criteria that you might go through, and when you're being just ultra selective and you're looking for the best material? I mean, walk us through that.
Sure. So I'll stick with cedar because that one's got a lot of range in it. I mean, you can get everything from a below STK green material, which is going to be full of knots. It's going to
grade.
Yeah, it's going to be a flat grain, so the rings are going to be flat with the face. Whereas if you step up to, let's say you step up to a C and better or a CVG, that material is a big step up. It's getting closer to a clear grade, and it may even be, in the case of CVG, it may have vertical grain to the face, which is going to add some stability to that material with movement.
Okay.
But the step up from there, an A grade prime line is going to have a tighter ring count. So the growth rings are going to be much more dense. It's going to be an older growth material. And that grain density, the vertical grain, ensuring that it's been kiln dried properly, all these properties are going to make that material not only last longer, but be more stable and be more beautiful.
Yeah.
Performance.
So it's every possible thing we can do to ensure that this piece of material is going to perform the best that it can for cedar. And that's really the goal. I mean, there's aesthetic gains, certainly.
Right.
But the vertical grain material, the kiln drying, everything is there to make sure that this goes up on the side of the house and is a permanent solution for the homeowner.
And when it comes to investment on our side as a company, we even take it a step further. Many companies, it's about turning volume, and, they go to different vendors, whatever vendor at that time is the cheapest. We've had some of the same suppliers and mills for almost 15 years that when I started the company, and we've grown together, and that way we get the choice cuts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff on the market that'll sit around and they'll drop the price because it's weathered, it's starting to check, it's showing its age. They know not to send that to us because we'll send it right back. So we even created that communication of what we expect and for our customer. And then one step further, we make the investment to buy in bulk and keep it in a raw, rough form. So every time you order it from U.S. Lumber Brokers, that's made specifically. It's never seen the light of day until you've placed that order and it shows up on your job site. So when you see that product, it wasn't sitting on a shelf. Nobody's picked through it. And it is the most pristine and beautiful product you'll ever see on your job site. And one step further on top of that is, instead of most companies, like I worked in a lumber yard. I worked for both a small company, then I worked for 84 Lumber. So I've seen the good and the bad of both sides. And that's how we came to create U.S. Lumber Brokers, taking the best of both worlds. You don't have to order 15, 20% waste from us. Our products are first come, no returns. And some people push back on that. Like, well, why no returns? Well, one, if we don't allow returns, you're not getting somebody else's return. I don't care what lumber company you work at or you buy from, you send back 25 boards or 100 boards. We don't throw that in the dumpster.
We get mixed back in.
We used to call it ship it to it sticks. Because eventually, if it's so bad, they cut it up as blocking. So with us, you order 5% and you're pretty much dead on. So now at $30 a square foot, instead of 20% extra, you're already saving some money. Yeah. So it really is. It's about that education. So yeah, you're getting first run product. You're getting the best, and it's made for you. So instead of 15%, you're saving now 10% on your materials costs versus spending an extra 10%.
Right. Instead of trying to, have that 15 to 20%, sometimes
create that
even
friction,
25%.
Right? That friction, like, hey, you shipped me some bad material.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't. And then you have that dance, you
Yep.
bring it back, and it ships it to somebody else. And then allowing someone, we don't allow people to, we do the selecting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
People don't come in and pick through our lumber. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're buying $1 million worth of wood. Not going to happen.
Okay. How closely do y'all work with architects,
Every
and
day.
builders?
Every
Yeah.
day. Todd emails an architect every day. Someone will talk to me every day.
How early in the process do you get involved? I mean, are you there from the get-go, or?
It depends. I mean, windows and doors are the one that you really need to be in there early, because a lot of the,
That's true.
especially the minimalist frame details, require slab details to be accounted for, and that really does require a lot of forethought. So, in those cases, we're definitely pushing the product pretty early in the process. But we're stopping by, showing them what's new, what we've got. That's maybe they hadn't seen before, and we're always trying to find the next finish or the next profile that we think is going to hit. So that's usually what we're stopping by for. That and just lunch and learns and that kind of thing.
Well, what is new when it comes to lumber? I mean, what is new? What's hot? What's trending?
I'd say thoroughly modified woods are trending for sure.
Let's go into that a little bit, because that's a relatively new thing, right? But kind of explain, if you can, what is a thermally modified wood, and what's, how does that help me as a builder?
Sure. So thermally modified woods they're natural woods. All that's been done to them is they've been heated and then rehydrated with steam after the process. So no chemicals, nothing like that for the added durability. What's changed about them is, through a process of heat and steam, they've been changed at the molecular level. Right?
Okay.
There's a hydrogen bond that doesn't get removed from simple kiln drying, so you still have a bonded hydrogen molecule at the molecular level on kiln dried lumber. When that material gets wet, that molecule will swell up with water. And that's what causes your warp, your twist, the board to react from being wet or
Okay.
When we have seasonal movement here in Texas, it's because you have that bonded molecule. So once we break that, the material can get wet, and it really is more like a porous stone. It's not going to change its properties. It's not going to swell, grow, change.
Okay.
So from a carpenter's standpoint, it's great. Right?
Yeah.
It stays where you put it. You've got a certain length board, and it's perfectly fit, and it stays that way indefinitely. It doesn't matter if we have 40 days at 100 degrees and no rain, or if it's the monsoon, that piece of material stays put.
That's great.
So it's also a great way to utilize underutilized fiber. So ash trees, they weren't very popular for interior use, and they certainly weren't viable for outdoor use. And so it's been a great utilization of that fiber. They're treating poplar. There's some tighter grains of pine that you wouldn't want to use outside, and all these materials are much more sustainable than the Brazilian hardwoods, and a lot easier on the forests down south. So it's a great thing for the environment as well to utilize this product.
Sure. What application would you use a thermally modified wood?
So thermally modified ash, we're using it for decking, siding, but the price point's good enough that we've used it for a substitute for walnut on interiors even.
Oh, really?
So it's got a lot of uses there.
Not every piece of lumber can be thermally modified. I mean, right?
They can. It's just it's they're taking material. There's a value add right to this material, so you're trying to hit a price point, and so and it's a long development process to figure out how long they heat it for and at what temperature. So it takes a while to onboard a new material. One of the suppliers we work with right now has 6, and they're adding a 7th, but that process takes several years. So they're not constantly kicking new ones to the market because they want to have time to test it and make sure that it's going to hold up in the way that it should.
Makes sense.
But any wood could be technically thermally modified. It's just how much
value does that add to
and you're going to have some loss on certain species more than others because you're heating it for such a long time. You're taking it to 0 moisture content, which can be very hard on the fiber.
Gotcha.
So you want one that's going to be interlocked enough that it can survive the process. So that's part of the testing that they go through.
Gotcha.
A huge value that I see is in the commercial aspect.
Okay.
Because so many investors and developers are, one in for the money. So if the wood, the wood accent or the investment of an accent wall, if it doesn't outperform standard wood, it kind of puts you on this, I'm going to have to replace it in a few years. With a thermally modified process, that life of that product is extremely extended. One of the best projects we just did, and we're so excited about it, is the new P. Terry's in East Austin at East 7th and Pleasant East 7th and Pertinalis. And I'm going to show you a picture.
Yeah.
And look how stunning that looks.
That looks amazing.
And that right there is our thermally modified hemlock.
That makes me want to go to P. Terry's.
Absolutely. I mean, enjoy a shake under there. But the beauty of this is, and what the owners, developers, and the architect on this project, they really loved the Western red cedar. But their design, they didn't like the huge variance that it gave them. So through the thermally modified process, it kind of took the hemlock, which is naturally a lighter color, and darkened it. And as you can tell from the photo, it looks like Western red cedar without the super variances. And then now it performs better than Western red cedar at a lower cost. So better performance, life, and looks, everything you're looking for.
That's phenomenal. Who was the architect on that one?
That'd be Michael Schu's office. Michael Schu here in
Love
Austin,
Michael Schu.
Texas.
It was one of my favorites. Yeah, actually, so side note, shout out to, I think it's a podcast, Smith Odom podcast, and they actually had the owner of P. Terry's on.
Monty, I've met him several times.
And what a fascinating guy, but I love their commitment to the architecture of all their burger stands.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're iconic. They're drive
investing.
by.
They could build so much cheaper, but that's not what the direction they're going.
Yeah.
All the way from their first burger stand on Barton Springs, they used actually Garapa because it was clear, a hardwood that would last for a very long time. So this is right in line with their vision in the beginning to build a burger stand that is, sustainable. You're not having to update it all the time. It's not full of a bunch of plastic. It's actually some earth products that are, both architecturally pleasing and also performing, and will get a value for their investment.
Yeah, it looks great. And yeah, how long has this process of thermally modifying lumber, how long has that been going on?
The process is at least 15 years old. I mean, we've been selling some form of that product for at least the last 12 years. But there's a lot more players now. There's some. That's
in the U.S. It's been in Europe for 20, 25 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we always seem to be behind Europe about 10 years.
Except to the moon.
Yeah, that's right. But I think I may have cut you off earlier. I asked you about what are some different applications for thermally modified woods?
Sure. So really anywhere that you would want a wood accent, but you might be nervous from a wear or rot standpoint, it really frees up not only more exterior applications of materials, but more exciting profiles, right? You can hog out a bunch of material out of the face of the product and not worry about it reacting poorly to humidity changes. So some of our profiles will only allow that on thermally modified woods or Akoya because those two materials don't really respond like wood. So that's advantageous for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Because, wood can misbehave pretty easily with
sun,
water, anything.
Everything.
It's a pain.
Yeah.
But it really takes a lot of the risk out of using wood on the exterior of a project. But like I said, the price point is still very competitive, and we use it a lot on interior projects. I mean, there's no reason that stability doesn't hurt to have it inside either. So, but really, it's just walnuts got so expensive that we use it a lot on the interior.
And speaking on that price point, we're seeing walnut. Depending on the volume, you could expect to pay $30 to $50 a square foot. Our thermally modified ash, you're looking under $20 a square foot, milled and ready to install.
It's a lot better, a lot more affordable.
There are some trade-offs to the process. It's not all win, right? There's some loss, as I mentioned, from the heat process, and so it goes through an optimizer. So we end up with some shorts. So it's sold random lengths, 5s all the way up to 14s on the ash, and pine we get a little longer lengths. But then also the material it's a touch more brittle, so you have to have some consideration on milling and fastening and that kind of thing. So there is some trade-offs, and that's part of the education. When somebody's new to the product, we make sure that they're aware of any potential pitfalls with that. But I'd say it's certainly net gain, and we're pushing it in front of ePay. I feel like it's a better performing product than ePay.
Okay.
So.
I'm going to add to that. We, as a company, 3 years ago, we would sell $3 to $5 million easily in a year of Brazilian hardwoods, ePay, Massaranduba, Garapa. And we were FSC certified because, the best thing about hardwoods is you do get your money's worth. As an architect, we understand they spec Brazilian hardwoods because their fiduciary to their owners is they want to draw and inspect things that are going to last. Mm-hmm. And ePay has that reputation. The last 50 years, it's
bomb-proof stuff.
All the way from the boardwalk. I think what started was the New York Bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge was the first commercial project with ePay and that was ironwoods. Props to those guys for starting something. And we were huge on it. That's how we started this company with Massaranduba, fence jobs, decking jobs. But about 3 years ago, we'd been in the thermally modified looking at it. But the certain vendors that were in the United States, 5 years ago, their supply chain, their price point, they just hadn't got it down on a massive distribution level. And then that's when we met the guys from Tan Timber. They actually sought us out because of our sustainability and the amount of hardwoods that we pushed, and visiting with the owners of that group and meeting with them. And we really saw that I told them 3 years ago, if this product performs the way you're saying, this is the only time in the history ePay distributors should be nervous. Because the last 10 years, every 4 or 5 years, someone will say, hey, I got something that looks like ePay. Mm-hmm. I got something that smells like ePay, something that is kind of like ePay. I got something cheaper than ePay. And you would eventually buy it. We bought Sukapira, terrible. You buy Kumaru most of the time. If it's not kiln dried right, terrible. Mm-hmm. And it just never works. You go back to ePay. And in this market, it needs to be KD versus air dry.
Yeah.
This is the first product I can go to an architect and say, I have something better than ePay. It's sustainable. It's all of it's FSC certified through U.S. lumber brokers. It's a non-rainforest product. And on the price point, it's less expensive.
Yeah.
It checks all the boxes right now. We even joked about doing a PSA of a bunch of architects sitting in a circle, in some warehouse, and they're talking about they're breaking their addiction to South American hardwoods with these thermally modified products because they're getting the performance, the price point, and the aesthetics that all the South Americans boasted because of their density, natural density. Yeah. Now they can get it from sources in the United States, Canada, and all over the world that are FSC certified, and you lose the stigma and get the value.
Question that I have, though, if this product is really thermally modified, products have been around for 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. How do we know the longevity is equal to that of ePay? You know what I mean? I mean, if we have historical data that shows like ePay lasts for 50, 75 years, no problem.
Correct.
What shows that, the thermally modified material is actually going to hold up to that?
We know from experience, right? We'll say an ePay deck can last 30, 40 years, but it's a level 1 or level A durability. Where they typically class 1, 25 years?
Class A, European standard. They've rated all these materials and sort of ranked them. And ePay is one of the only naturally occurring class A or level 1 durability materials. Which ash is also in that classification, the thermally modified ash. And whenever someone asks me, show me some projects, I'm happy to show them. I've got plenty of them going on, and we were selling thermally modified ash, like I said, for at least 12 years. So we've got projects that are at least that old.
Yeah.
But in Europe, through our partnership with Tan Timber, we have lots of project history there as well. So we can show them a 15-year-old project and how it's wearing, and get updated project photos from that. It's science, and it's why it's taking long to catch on here, right? You've got to prove it to people that this is better. And I have the same, process that I've got to go through with every single one of my customers. They got to see it, they got to try it, and they've got to, then they're on board, right? Anyone that I've sold ash or Tan Timber ash to, they don't buy ePay anymore unless they have to. Not because they're averse to it necessarily, but because they're like, it's a better product. It installs easier. It's less it's less work,
it's cheaper, and fits the budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so back to the Ipe versus ash, you're both going to get a solid 25 years out of that product. And now that the commercial architect is aware of it, we're already seeing projects like we're on a project right now with Foresight Studios doing the Waterloo Conservative Bridge down there, and that was one thing the New York architects said absolutely nothing to do with Ipe. And I said, I got the perfect product. And once they saw it, they're like, this is, again, like the Western Red Cedar, Ipe has 7 different species under one umbrella. So you have different grain types, you have different colors. You never know what you're going to get. It's a whole mixed bag of 7 different species, like your SPF framing, spruce, pine, fir.
Yep.
Same thing, but now 7 species. When you buy thermally modified ash through us, it's one species specific, very tight color grain and low variances.
Okay.
And it's very, very nice. It's what, if you haven't seen it, look it up on our Instagram and you'll find it there.
Okay. So we've kind of covered thermally modified products and their uses and applications. And the other one I kind of wanted to talk about that I think is relatively new is Akoya. Mm-hmm. Let's kind of dive into that one.
Sure. So Akoya is they're breaking that bond as well with the heat process, and then they're adding a mild acidity to the product. So that's what makes it acetylated.
Right.
And once they add a chemical to it, that takes what we've gained from modifying it, breaking that hydrogen bond, and increases that durability even more. The mild acidity sort of combats rot and decay and insect, so it's even more durable. And they go as far as to offer a 50-year warranty on the material against rot, and even a 25-year warranty submerged in fresh water. So you have a set of stairs that go down into Lake Boston, make them out of Akoya, and they're at least guaranteed to 25 years. But when we got the product, they brought it to us and said, it's bomb proof. And if we do what we always did, we throw it in a bucket of water and
test it out. Yeah, let's find out.
2 weeks.
I'll get my caliper here on a couple weeks and see how much it's changed and see what it did to it. And I was shocked. I mean, it just didn't even change it at all. I mean,
really?
Yeah, it down to the 3rd decimal place on the caliper after 2 weeks in a bucket of water.
It changes color, and then we set it up vertically so the grain was down. It dried out, left some water stains, but absolutely bulletproof.
Yeah, wow. It's really, really impressive stuff. It's spendy. It's expensive product. I know they're moving to put some more manufacturing here in the States, but there's a lot of shipping involved in the process right now. There's the pine that's harvested is brought in from New Zealand, and they take it to the Netherlands for processing. And so a lot of boat miles to get it to your end user. So I know they're working on that. There's certainly a huge market for it, and anybody that uses it understands the value of it. There's a lot of sash makers, window makers, that kind of thing that are using it. So it's really valuable from a manufacturing standpoint, but also for decking and siding. And there's several people that are building colors onto it, and that's another advantage of both of these products, the thermally modified and the acetylated, is if they're not moving around, it holds that finish a lot better.
Sure.
So you get a lot longer wear cycles on your finishes and colors. So there's just tons of advantages to these sort of science-backed materials that are great because they're based on real wood. I know we were just at IBS Vegas, and people would come by and ask us, "Is this real wood?" Right? And they're so tired of seeing the aluminum with it printed on there, and it's like, yes, this is real wood, but without the trouble, right? It's elevated. We've sort of fixed it, but it still has all the beauty and natural characteristics of wood from an aesthetic standpoint. Yeah,
there's been a lot of imitation wood products over the years, and I haven't liked any one, especially like the PVC decking. I hopefully that's fallen out of style. I've done one PVC deck, and I absolutely hated it because we would, I want to say it was during the winter, but you would start in the morning and it was cold and all your material had shrunk overnight. So you're cutting all these deck boards and you're laying them down. Well, okay, by the afternoon, guess what? It's warmed up 30 degrees and now everything has grown by 1/4 of an inch in some cases.
Or more than that.
Or more. And it's like, this is a nightmare. It's like, how are you supposed to how are you supposed to do this? And, you know, when you're trying to achieve a high level of quality and keep reveals and gaps constant, it's like, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, this is...
I'm notorious in the office for, we'll have a sales rep come through and say, I've got a new product, and I'll take a look. And I'm like, not interested. You know, I'm not going to even sit in on that, because I'm known in the office as the wood guru, and I'm sort of a snob. I don't like any of the plastic or any of that stuff. I just, and when they tell you you've got to install it with a 1/4-inch gap at the corner, I'm like,
nope.
Why? You know, why'd you even make this?
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of job are you doing where you can leave a 1/4-inch gap?
Yeah, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
That's a nice point, and that's one of the things that I give a lot of credit to is everyone that works together at U.S. Lumber Brokers. We're lowering the risk of our customers and our architects. Out of the whole company, we probably have less than 20 SKUs, and it's just that reason. You know, if you have more than 100 SKUs of product that you're selling, there's no way you could put all of that on your house. And usually when someone will ask me, an architect, well, this is what I would put in my own home. And I do. I have thermal ash in my own home. You know, I have bison pedestals on my deck. You know, these are products that there are knockoffs. There's people that have it cheaper than that, but they don't do the research. They don't have the quality of the manufacturing, and they don't have the quality company backing them up.
Yep.
You know, I got involved with Trex almost exactly when I started my company. Now, when it comes to composite decking, Trex was the only one that was in business longer than their warranty. And I always laughed about that. We'd be at a trade show and a guy goes, I got a 50-year warranty. I'm like, it's still, the ink on your DBA or LLC is still wet. How do you even know it's 50 years? And, you know, they've gone away. I've got 24 composite deck companies and cladding companies. But if you're going to go with a composite, you want that versus a wood deck. Yeah, Trex they've come out with some good stuff. They don't expand and contract like the pure PVC that you're talking about. They do have a place, you know, and I like to think rental houses, you know, things like that work really well, that where the tenants are being abusive or they have dogs. It's very easy to clean up versus a wood deck.
That's true. Do y'all, how much testing and R&D do y'all do? Do y'all ever build mock-ups and do rain screen applications and test different ways of installing? And
not only that, we've been testing finishes. We don't get into the colors near as much as some folks in town, but we recognize that we're big into thermally modified materials, and through that process, everything gets much darker. Just because of the nature of heating something for that long. White ash becomes walnut colored, and not every house wants walnut colored material on the outside of it. So it was like, we really need a lighter tone, but I don't want something this is supposed to be an option that's easy. So I want a finish that's lighter, but it's less maintenance or no maintenance. And so we ended up contacting a Swedish company that has a finish. But there was a lot of testing of that product and the application of it, and what are the pitfalls of us doing it in-house, which was over a year-long process of us before we ever said, okay, now I'm ready to take this to somebody and sell it to them.
Oh.
The Lumber Snob actually required the reps from Sios to come in and visit with him before you would even present it. He's like, you're going to show me exactly how this is applied, and it's going to do what you say it's going to do versus your magazines. And sure enough, I mean, that's that protection. That's that risk.
Good
that
for
low
you.
risk option of working with us.
Yeah, it was a little tricky because they're Swedish. And they were speaking English, but I'm Texan. I didn't hear it very well.
Yeah,
so
it's a little different.
We got a U.S. rep, English the first language, and my southern ears could hear him a lot more clearly.
Good.
But it was nice to meet the fellas, and I was glad they came in and showed me what I was doing wrong.
Well, good for you. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, okay. So we've kind of talked about some of the things that y'all sell, but what's y'all's bread and butter? Is it the thermally modified products or the Akoya? I mean, what are you seeing most? Go out the door.
I would say the repeat business, right? The repeat business of the architects that known us for 10, 15 years. The repeat business of providing always new, changing products. Not just sticking with. We do have the traditional products that that can always go on. They're always welcomed on modern, contemporary to rustic, Douglas fir timbers, custom milling. But keeping our eye out and basically finding new products that we can present to them, be it wood, decking, windows and doors. You know, the last IBS, we were right next to the Weather Shield display, and they had everything available. They had their contemporary, their view. They're even coming out with these giant pivot doors that have an aluminum honeycomb core, where you have a 8-foot by 14-foot door that weighs less than 300 pounds. Absolutely fantastic action. Color options that nobody else is offering for no upcharge. So what really works is having that reputation of being trusted by the architect, being trusted by the spec builder, being trusted by the homeowner. And when they upgrade, sell, or build again, my phone rings.
Yep.
I've got another one. And I don't have to really chase business. I just manage our business. And Todd, same, once they start working with us, they know they're going to get all the information. They're going to know exactly what to do, show up the job, show people how to install it, hand them warranty, hand them installation information, where, again, the volume that we handle is not like other places where it's just volume, turn.
Yeah.
It's just not that life. So I think they enjoy, if we need to spend, just like this podcast with you, we need to spend 30 minutes, an hour just talking about our business. It's a pleasure. We're passionate. I go to architect meetings and I do 30 minutes and I look up, I just finished talking. And they're like, that's it. You're so passionate about what you do. It's my life. I love it. And so I think it just bleeds over to where people that enjoy that they're carpenters or tradesmen, they're beginners. We get women all the time and men all the time that are just moving to Austin. They get their first house and they see our comb siding on the Instagram. And like, I want to buy these panels. I'm like, let me explain. It's not really a panel. It's a tongue and groove system, and it looks like a panel. And I'm like, wow, do I need to get someone to install it? And then I show them the pictures from my house. I go, look, I installed this. I borrowed Todd's nail gun and finish nailer to do it. You don't need a whole lot of a skill to do this, a level, and you can do this. And I walk them through it, and it's great. You know, we just really love it. You know.
Yeah.
But speaking to your to what products are moving, I'd say we're constantly educating our customers as to what seems to be like the best value at the time. Right? There's a time where cedar really spiked pretty high price point wise, and I would advise my customers, look, this is outrageous price point right now, and it's not worth it. And here's the reasons why. There's the tariff. There's a trucking strike. There's all these things contributing, right?
Fires in Oregon.
So you're going to overspend for this unless you really want it. Here are some other options. So is what's moving. It sort of depends on what's going on in the marketplace, I think, and we just try and promote what's the best option for the project that's going to perform for where they need it, right? Trying to, like to our point earlier, look at the plan, see what the exposure is on this material, whether it's soffit, whether it's siding, and if it's going to get full sun, and then educate them and say, here's your options, right? And so I'd say year on year, we have some front runners, but it sort of moves around a little bit. The only thing that I can really see trending is that we're outpacing Ipe with thorny modified ash.
Okay.
And I don't think that's purely promotion. I just think that it's getting some traction here, not only in the city of Austin, just in the States in general.
I just remembered the whole CITES list with the South American hardwoods.
Yeah, that's certainly going to contribute.
What's that?
Ipe being placed on the endangered species list is certainly going to start contributing to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 24 months, it'll be listed as an endangered species along with Kumaru, Santos mahogany. So you'll still be able to get it, but it's going to be very heavily restricted. And which is great, which is great. If it makes that list, it's for a reason. But we already have pivoted with, like I mentioned, a better product. So you're not going to miss out.
Sure. Well, what's on the horizon? What's the future? I mean, I'm not in the lumber market. I don't have my ear to the ground, so to speak, as you guys do. But when you look out 25 years in the future, what's coming up? What's next? What do you, in your mind? What's the next big thing?
I'm just a simple carpenter.
Oh, come on. That's a cop-out answer.
I feel like I picked, gray was in for a really long time color-wise, and I felt like green was going to start becoming the color, but nobody wanted to call it green, and I feel like there's a ton of interest design-wise that's trending towards like an olive or... but I wouldn't pretend to know where they're...
Pistachio is very expensive.
I wouldn't pretend. I hope they keep building modern looks with big glass and lots of wood from a salesman's side.
I was told a long time ago.
Get rid of the brick. I don't need any brick.
Right.
you can build with brick, and they do that. There's certain places they build with all brick. They're prisons, so you can have a house that represents something like that, and just that one little wood accent wall with some comb siding, some Western red cedar. It brings that warmth and vibrant where that, hey, we're not just living in a cave anymore. We've actually put some thought into where we're going to live our lives and either grow families or enjoy your safe space. So, I think there's always going to be versus the nice thing about wood is it's always going to be there. It's a nice accent to sheetrock, anything you can do. And the best part is with wood, they have so many natural colors, and we promote more than anything. We clear finish our products because you don't need to stain it, the majority of them, and add maintenance for the interior. And that's one thing I really like about our products. Again, all the prime lines, if we put a nice clear, one of the products we like to use is PPG's, door and window sealer. It's this really good sealer that's almost an industrial level. It brings out the grain. It mutes a little bit of the fuzziness, from the milling. And you're basically looking at a wall that looks like furniture. And it's just people walk by and they'll do a double take. It's wonderful.
I will say I was through several neighborhoods today. I know we talked before we got on about how many miles I covered today, salesman life. Yeah. But one trend that I'm sure you're aware of is just a lot of glass to the point that you can see all the way through the house in a lot of cases. And so I think options for switchable glass is going to become more frequent and more common request because I don't think that design is going anywhere. I think, and really, I think it's going to trickle down to outside, not just the super high end market. I think people are going to have a desire for bigger panes of glass in the home and more open to the outside, right? The bigger views, but you don't want it all the time. So, and certainly you aren't going to drag a big
curtain or screen.
Remember, we don't have to do that with Weather Shield.
Right, they have the switchable.
They glass. They have an iodine or iodize. They have a window now that is. It used to be really, really, really expensive, where those windows that would go opaque. Well, now Weather Shield again advancing their design and listening to what architects want and that exact format where they mentioned these beautiful houses that we work on at Lake Austin where they have these see-through glass. At night, they become that fishbowl, right? You're on the outside, you can see everything in there.
Yep.
And that can be unsettling, and it could be dangerous in certain areas. So the front doors and the front panels, they go opaque or different colors, where it gives that idea like, I really don't know what's behind that door. And I say, you don't really know how big that dog sounds. Yeah. So it offers some privacy, a little more comfort. And it's a neat thing when it just turns off. And the cool thing is when the electricity is shut off, that's when it goes opaque. Yeah. So if you have a power failure, whatever, you're protected. So it's a really nice thing where constant electricity of saving energy. You're not having to burn energy to what you want. Actually, just you're saving energy and you're getting what you want.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
In my opinion, I think it would be great to kind of see us trend away more from just the modern glass and steel. There is some beauty in that. I mean, I love a good concrete, steel, glass house every now and then. If it's well done, I mean, you can really appreciate it. But, getting to see some of these other houses that have just a lot of timber, a lot of wood grain, and there's actually a lot of humanity in it, and some of the finishes because it's hand worked. It's not this machined perfect, factory finish that's just perfect gloss mirror finish. You know what I mean? And it has
like
some.
You're in a museum.
Yeah, and it has this human touch to it, and you can actually look and see the craftsmanship and the character and the soul in this, in this project. And to me, that has a lot of value, and I hope to kind of see it trend back towards that direction.
That's a very great point. And there's I'm sure you've heard of Revent Builds. Revent Builds, John.
Yeah.
I mean, his Victorian modern look. One, props to him breaking out and being the first.
That's actually great that you mentioned that because I just had John on.
Okay. I love that guy.
He's got such an energy, man.
So interesting. And when you talk about pushing the envelope, I mean, you're almost. I can know he has plenty of people lined up waiting for him to fail. They do. I'm sure he does. But people like myself, I see him doing that. He was at IBS. We met him there.
Yeah.
Super approachable. But mention those houses that he's doing over there in the Lamar area. Yeah. It's the only one in the whole neighborhood, and it's beautiful. Like you say, you're looking at this thing like this was not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
There's not another house. So I look to see Austin accept that, and I definitely see a really bright future in that design.
Absolutely. And I, like I said, I just had him on, and I applaud that guy because, I mean, the things that he's been able to accomplish and just his energy for the industry and you know, and I get it. You put yourself out there on social media, on YouTube, like you're going to have people talk shit and naysay and, you know, it happens. Like, you know, I'm not saying it's right, but, you know, people do that. But man, what that guy's been able to accomplish, you know, in 34 years, he's amazing. And I wish him the best. And,
I definitely see success in his product and what he's doing.
Agreed. Yeah. And such a nice guy too.
Absolutely.
And I loved having him on, but I wanted to close with one question to each of you. And that is, if you could change one thing about the construction industry, what would it be?
Ooh, this is something I've really held. Great question. And I'm glad I have a platform to say it.
Yep.
One thing that I've had the biggest problem in our industry, and it's probably global in multiple industries, we were FSC certified before anybody else was. And I still think today, maybe barring Austin Lumber, we're actually the only two lumber companies that are FSC certified in all of Austin. I hate the idea that doing something right, something sustainable, costs more money. Okay. There's all these rebates for solar panel and electric cars. And, you know, if we actually focused on where people live, and I gave a benefit or a rebate for you to find an architect, a builder, a developer that wanted to push forward a smaller carbon footprint, a better designed house with better materials from sustainably sourced places, why does that have to cost 50% more instead of 50% less? I do not agree with that, and I wish that would be the one thing I could change, where the government gives, or whoever is giving, the city gives all these benefits to things that make a little bit of an impression. But think about the impression if you change the way all homes were built in your city to meet that goal.
Sure.
That's what I would say, where I was rewarded for thinking about my community, and it was less expensive to build correctly.
That's good.
Mine would be, and I think we're starting to see it maybe start to go that way, is better education towards trades from like high school up, right? And getting rid of the stigma that going into trades is somehow less than I'm going to go to a 4-year school. And adding on to that, you know, there's certainly there's like a tiered level for an electrician or for a plumber. And that didn't really exist for a carpenter. So every time that I left a place and moved somewhere else, it was just, all right, start you at $14 an hour and see what you can do. Right. Work history didn't really seem to play. So having some kind of a classification for woodworkers and carpenters, I think would be beneficial to that industry as well. Just to get more people into it, especially if it's going to go more craftsman design. You're going to need people that are skilled with their hands to build these projects. So.
Awesome. Fantastic. I mean, I love both of those responses. And yeah, people struggle with that question when I ask them. I mean, it kind of cuts right to the heart of that's beautiful.
That's one of my only gifts, griefs about that, having to tell someone you're doing the right thing and it's going to cost you more money. Sure. And I'm so glad I got to say that publicly. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time and coming and talking to me and absolutely I appreciate the bourbon and the Yeti. You guys are awesome. Sure. And I look forward to working with you guys in the future. And Appreciate you guys coming on.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.